Hey guys, and welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. We've got a bonus episode for you today, catching up with a good friend of ours, Luke Allen. He's been on the show many times, but I always say the best thing about the Shrewsbury Biscuit is about the friends that we make along the way. And Luke Allen is someone that we've been speaking to through many different stages of his career. As a teenager, 14 or 15. Just writing things, getting headlines in the newspapers and things. We were like, we need to speak to this young guy. We did, and then we've spoken to him on the set of Henry House. He's in college and he's learning to become a writer on a set, and he's making his own things. And now we've got Luke Allen, the adult. He's gone away. He's done his own thing. He's now created his own label. He's writing great sketch shows. He's doing so much, and we get into some real deep conversation here, which is I think quite refreshing actually, when you can have an adult grown-up conversation about things like religion and how it fits into writing and comedy, and how to be respectful and also push the boundaries a little bit. I think it was a really good conversation. So great episode for you here. Luke Allen, hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you guys at the end of this one. Peace out. Enjoy the episode. Hi guys, welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm of course Billy, and today I'm speaking to a good old friend, a young old friend. Someone who's featured on the biscuit many times. You may remember a while ago we used to do Horses and Biscuits, but before then, way before Horses and Biscuits, we were talking to Luke Allen about his career making things, and that's who we got on the show today. How are you, Luke? You good?
Oh, yeah, I'm good. It's been a while, but the past year has flown by. Time doesn't make sense anymore. So things.
Yeah, I had to take a step away from Horses and Biscuits. There was one thing that was brought up to me that it was confusing people. Having two things on the same channel. The algorithms and stuff, and also because there was a point in my life when I was doing way too much. Way too much. I was doing the podcast, doing the radio, I was doing another podcast, running another podcast network, doing this, going to events, running family, but I was kind of making myself poor. So,
and to those of us hands-on with the Rock and Horse and Henry House, so much is taking place that there would have been a heck of a lot to cover. It's full speed for the past year. It's been
I haven't we haven't fallen out. I'm still good friends with Gareth and everybody that's there. I love them guys to bits, but I've just been letting you guys do your thing, and it seems like you guys have been doing it really, really well. So, oh, there's that echo. I was like, we were like, where's the echo? There it is.
Ooh. Is it good? Very prominent? Okay.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So, Luke, what it's been a while since we spoke. I think the last time. Oh gosh, trying to think about it. When was the last Horses and Biscuits we did, Luke? You remember?
There was a disability one just before Christmas, I think, November, December last year. I think that might have been it. Me and Simon and
yes,
AJ, was it? I can't remember.
I do remember that. One of the last ones I was doing was with Simon Fisher-Becker, that's for sure. But what have you been up to, my friend? You've been working hard?
Yeah, apart from everything with Henry House, I have sort of set up as a production company, Our Seat Knock, and I'm doing some sort of general stuff on other films. I'm a producer for a short film that's filming in Kent at the moment, but I'm also working on a sketch comedy show, and in the late stages of editing a stand-up comedy special for comedian Andy Kind. So it's been busy. It's been full on.
Yeah, and that's what I've always appreciated about you. I think that's what impressed me about you when I first interviewed you way back in 2019 or whenever it was. Is that you've got a bit of a good drive, even from a young age. You've always had that enthusiasm to actually want to go out there and make it. Because you know, when you're as young as you were when you first started, a lot of kids are just there for the ride. You know, go home, have your parents make your dinner for you, have your parents clean up all the stuff after you, and just enjoy being a kid. You're not like that. You were like, no, I want to do the things that adults do and make things.
Yeah, and especially like getting into. So I first started making films at 14, and at 14, you know, film companies and stuff aren't offering up opportunities to you. So
Not taking you serious.
So yeah, so I just kept making it myself, and it's only been probably since I've turned 18 that like I could be taken on by places. But most of the time, to be completely honest, I do still apply, but I don't think I have the time alongside my own stuff to actually like do other bits. But yeah, so it's been all of that plus the production management of Henry House, which is one of those boring roles that people don't really think about. I'm the person who sits in an office and answers the phone when there's a problem. And one day that problem was Peter Purvis has broken his wrist in 2 places and we have to suspend production and raise all the funds again, which wasn't the best one, but we're that's the whole thing. If they follow Rockin' Horse on socials, they can see everything that's taking place there to get back in. We
will catch up with the guys at Rockin' Horse because I do love them to bits. But you got, like I said, they've been doing their own thing, raising their own money, and doing a great job without me. So they didn't need me in the first place. But I do love those guys to bits. So it'd be great to catch up with them at some point.
Yeah.
But like, you know, going from that transition from finishing college and from you know, now being able to go out there and step on into the big bad world as like, you know, like we've kind of put it on this as an adult creator now. But you've got that bit of experience that a lot of young filmmakers don't have, because a lot of people do start where you are now, don't they? They just start there. So do you think that's going to help you? Do you think that's going to slingshot you into sort of filmmaking?
I hope so. You know, I mean, I've decided to, at the moment I left college, to not do the academic route further. There's a lot of people who decide to carry that on, and there's pros and cons. I'm often doing productions and stuff and think, I wish I was in uni and I could hire all this equipment for free rather than have to like budget it all out. But similarly, yeah, I've noticed that it's been nice to sort of have this head start, that occasionally, you know, I've been on set. I know you haven't talked about the academic route, but like, yeah, occasionally I've been on set and the people below me in set hierarchy, I don't like there being a hierarchy, but there is, are people who've just left uni. And it's like, what do those 4 years do? that you do it and you come out, and me who hasn't done anything is still telling you what you need to do. And obviously they learn a lot more practical stuff through that. But yeah, I'm hoping that I've sort of got a little bit of a head start in some ways. But you know, it's one of those things where you constantly keep learning. You don't know what you don't know.
I guess it depends what you want to do in the world of film, I suppose, isn't it? If you want to become a producer, there's many roles you can choose to. Yes. A producer is an umbrella term for a million different roles, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
If you want to be a writer, you know, but you know, when it comes to writing content, I feel like with you as an example, you can only get better with every single script you write. You get better and better every time, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think you know, every time I look at one of my scripts or one of my previous projects, that I don't just go, oh yeah, that's great, I'm super proud of that. As every creative does, you go, oh, I wish I'd changed that, I wish I'd done that, and every project is a chance to fix that and create a whole new list of things that you need to fix for the next one. So you kind of never stop, never get full satisfaction at what you do, and just keep sort of working on. So yeah, there's certain things in this new project, in this sketch show, that I'm trying to like fix errors that I made with Reduce to Clear and things like that. You know, it's a constant sort of cycle. But yeah, you do sort of keep getting better. But as you also said, on the producer front, it is also like, so I've been lucky enough to have been asked by a few people to like produce projects and stuff, and it's like they bring on as a producer, but I do have to explicitly ask the question, what do you want me to do? Like it's not just like, you know, you come on, I could be wrong, I've not done sound, but if you bring on a sound person, they kind of know they're doing sound, this is what they have. You bring on a producer, I'm like, do you want me to write contracts? Do you want me to oversee budget? Or do you just want me to kind of sit above and make sure that everyone knows what they're doing? There's a big sort of spectrum of producer responsibilities. You know, as associate producer on Henry House, I've probably done more in an associate producer capacity on that than I have in a full producer capacity on some shorts. It completely varies about.
It's a big project, Henry House is, and it's got a lot of moving parts to it. So I'm sure I know from being on set with you that you're an asset to that production. There's so much going on. It's good to have the people that I guess Gareth knows and trusts on set, and I guess it must be like that with people you've worked with in the past as well.
Yes.
I mean, I know you're doing your new project with Alex, who you've worked with before. It must be nice to have him on board for that.
Yes, it was, and it's, as you said, it's the people that you trust. So within the sketch show, we've got a whole range of like directors. So each sketch has been directed by someone else, which is my slow way of learning to let go, because I don't think I'm a good director. I think I am just a control freak once I've written a script and don't want anyone else to touch it. And so that's a sort of slow way. So I brought Alex on to co-direct that, and also he's as a producer. Because Alex and Helen, who I don't think has actually been on the Biscuit, but is in and involved in pretty much everything I've done. They're two creatives that I know I can feed back off. So if I write a new sketch for the sketch show and I send it to them and they say, this is utter rubbish, I will listen to them. And similarly, and I think that's what's important. You do need that sort of circle of people that you trust and that you can feed back on and you get on, which is what's really hard when breaking into it in the first place, is when you're making your own stuff, you need to create those contacts in the first place. And it's probably why pretty much everyone's first film is rubbish, is because you haven't yet developed those contacts that can feed back with you, and you don't know who you gel well with. And especially a lot of it, I mean, I'm still obviously early projects, it hopefully in terms of the grand scheme of my career, they're still early, but I've earlier on stuff, you have to work with certain people to realize that you don't work well with them.
I think that's it's just, there's so many stories like that though in Hollywood, in UK TV as well. Tarantino very famously works with the same people. He has his crew that he trusts. I mean, I'm comparing it to Tarantino, but but do you look at people in the industry as good examples for how you should do your thing, or are you just going to try and go out there and try to be the one and only Luke Allen?
I mean, I've always obviously looked up to Richard Curtis. A lot of what he does, I've seen, and he does have a certain kind of small circle of regular people that he collaborates with. And I guess completely unintentionally, doing the whole sketch show thing, he started on Not the Knockout News. That was not an intentional thing. When I said I'm going to do a sketch show, Richard Curtis did a sketch show. That wasn't like the plan, but it has sort of happened. And that all came off the back of Reduced to Clear, which obviously it was the sort of vignettes more than sketches. But Reduced to Clear, I think, was one of the first things I'd written where I felt like this is me, rather than like earlier stuff, Unstable and things. Whilst I'm still reasonably proud of a lot of the elements of that, it doesn't feel like me. Whereas Reduced to Clear did, and then subsequently this sketch show, like I'm writing it and I'm like this. I feel like I've found my voice as a writer, and it's technically taken 5 years to find my voice as a writer. So, and I might look back at this a couple of years down the line and say I hadn't found it yet. I can't remember what question you asked, but I feel like I didn't answer it.
Fine, we're just trying. And this is the best thing about when you make friends doing, like, the Biscuit's taking me on so many amazing journeys, but like I feel like the best part about it is the friends I've made along the way. So when we set up a podcast like this, it's nice to just sit and just chew the fat. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing formal about it, and something sketchy. It seems like a great. It feels like it's got a multi-format vibe to it. In a way that Monty Python can be a stage show, and it was a successful stage show, as well as something that can go on a TV or on the big screen, for example.
Yeah. Hopefully. I mean, I did. I realize I keep looping things back into Henry House. That's not intentional, but they were doing a fundraiser night not too long ago, and I put 2 sketches on stage then, and that's the first time I've ever performed my own stuff. But I'd like to say it worked. I mean, I'd have to ask the audience, but like that was a new experience, and it was. I've sort of I've been rewatching a lot of old League of Gentlemen recently. I love League of Gentlemen, and I've been rewatching some of their old stuff. And watching them on stage and hearing the Pythons talk about times when they've done sketches. And I remember hearing an interview with John Cleese where he said, first time they did their show live, they were worried because the audience weren't laughing, and then someone took them round to the corner and the audience were mouthing along to every word to it. It's like they'd come to a concert where they know all the words. And hearing that, I was like, I want that. I know it's a big ask, but I aspire to something like that. I think.
I think that would drive me crazy. There's a lady that was kicked out of a festival. I can't remember what it was. Was it a theatre thing? I think it was a theatre thing. And she stood up and started singing the songs along with her, very passionately and lovely. But everybody else was like, kind of like, shh, I'm trying to enjoy the show.
I'm always like that in like concerts and stuff. I'm like, are we allowed to sing? Do we want to just like?
I think somebody was kicked out of a Coldplay gig for being a bit too loud recently. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think when I went to see Elton recently, that all kind of everyone was singing, and that of course is a follow-up to a thing I think I talked about on here ages ago when Elton John started out our school choir back in lockdown. Well, about a month and a bit ago, we saw him live. We met him. He gave us lovely tickets, and he shouted us out during the show. It was probably the most surreal thing in front of 16,000 people. Elton John saying, "Shout out to the Telford Priory School. This song's for you." It's like, oh, okay.
I feel like whenever Elton John says a compliment to anybody, I think there's like, of course, it's a wonderful sentiment because it's from Elton John, but also you're not on the other side of him where he's going, "Why is my monitor's not working?" and he's screaming at people. Like, it's nice to be on the other end of that, I suppose. It was
and obviously only seeing him briefly, didn't see any of this like diva side, so I can't comment neither here nor there. But he was lovely. But it also, like, of all the, I've been lucky enough across projects to have met a lot of iconic people, probably none as iconic as Elton John. Until you meet him and you realize like there's a lot of formalities before actually meeting him, a lot of things you have to go through. But it's there. And in terms of meeting lovely people to work with, there's only a few members of cast thus far formally announced for something sketchy, but hopefully similar to Reduced to Clear, there'll be sort of different people that I've looked up to that I've had involved. One that I'm really excited about working with, and I've had a couple of meetings with her about it, is Lola Blue, who is in one of the sketches. There was a show on CBBC recently that I suddenly saw loads of people talking about, and it was called A Kind of Spark, and it was a children's drama about autism, but like there were loads of news stories about it. Billy Bannister, who was the sound guy in Reduced to Clear, worked on it, and I thought, I'll just check it out on iPlayer. And as soon as I watched it, I was like, that lead actress is really good. I want to get her in one of my sketches. And I just emailed her agent and they said yes, which doesn't normally happen. It's very rare that you get to sit and watch something and go, I want that person, and then it happens.
Yeah. I was just looking at it now. It looks incredible. Anything that brings autism out into the open in this way is always brilliant, I think.
Oh, yeah, and it's does it so well. It's it's written by autistic people. A lot of the actors and crew are autistic, and it's got this very sort of truthful element to it where you feel, as a neurodiverse person myself, you're watching it and I haven't realized the lack of representation of certain things until I see it happen, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could represent that. And so it's very, very good, and I'm very, very excited to have Lola on board for one of the sketches. In exchange for her involvement, we've arranged to do her headshots and stuff. So last week we met up with her and Mr. Bog Mackin of Bob's Rockin' Snaps and got some headshots sorted. And it was really lovely, and it's nice to be able to kind of offer something in return to those that are supporting the project.
That's a good bit of payback for the hard work you've put into writing this. You say, it's taken you 5 odd years of experience taking this out, putting this in, putting this together, and to suddenly start getting people like Lola Blue to turn up to help you out. It must mean that you finally starting to get the credibility that you deserve, right? Is that how it feels?
I guess so. It's what's been very weird for me is, like, with Reduced to Clear and everything. Before I was 18, I made a big thing in my emails whenever I was asking people, like throwing my age in there, because that was always like, oh, it's the 15-year-old filmmaker, the 60, and they were kind of supporting because it was a young up and coming filmmaker. No one really cares if you're 19 and making films, so it's like that's not in the emails anymore. So it's like they're tying themselves to the project, hopefully because they believe in it and not because they think they're helping out a kid. And that's it's a bit scary, to be fair. When I turned 18, I was genuinely like, all the articles and stuff that I've been lucky enough to have covering films I've made have always been young filmmaker this, or teenage filmmaker, or kid filmmaker, whatever. They've never said if I'm good or not. And so it was suddenly like, the moment I turned 18, it was like, oh, like I'm entering the big world now, where I'm not going to be, oh, he's good because he's a kid. I've got to actually be good. And I'm sure there are many critics out there who would say I've not managed that yet. There was one person who called Reduced to Clear the least funny thing to come out of Britain since Brexit. And I nearly put that on my business card. I thought that was great. But it was...
I feel like if you're doing that to someone, though, you're kind of doing a good job. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, like,
yeah,
I mean, if someone's cared enough to comment on how bad something is, you've affected them in some way. You know, there is whether they
honestly, this whole review is on UK Film Review. I will shout this out. It's like a 1-star review for Reduced to Clear. If you search Reduced to Clear UK Film Review, and it is one of the funniest things I've ever read. I have, and I was at a networking event shortly afterwards, and I did just go to people like, "Hey, I'm the least funny thing to come out of Britain since Brexit. Nice to meet you." And it was really good fun, and it is important, and like, to just disconnect from those sort of reviews. Find them.
So, what's the goal, like, to make it into like the mainstream? Is it to take something to like Cannes? Is it to create something that you can go and get some sort of awards from? And what's the goal?
Well, for me, I've never been about like the artsiness, and I think cinephiles and filmy people aren't the general audience for my sort of stuff as much. So, which it's a shame, because when you're making short films, they're kind of the only people who watch short films. But I would love to just make a sketch show that airs on TV, or have like a sitcom or something that people would watch and say, that's good, I want to show it to my mum. Like something that feels so accessible and so sort of just light and silly. I have a ton of respect for the filmmakers that can throw in drama and artistic angles and everything else that just feels alien to me. But yeah, for me, like, I'm working in a very short film is a niche area, but trying to make something for a general audience, and it's difficult. But yeah, that's the aim. Is I would love to have a sketch show just like air on like BBC Two or something.
Oh, so you go terrestrial? You wouldn't go Netflix or Amazon or anything like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, if someone wants to offer me, I will say yes to whoever. But I in my mind, probably I'm still like a bit behind on things, but in my mind, like, I do still feel like terrestrial TV is the biggest. It still feels like a big deal, even if streamers probably are better in that regard.
Honestly, I pay for a TV license, and I don't even know why half the time, because I can't remember the last time I actually watched something that was made by the BBC. I do. Some of my favorite shows, like Sherlock, is one of the greatest things ever made by anybody. There are examples out there of the BBC being absolutely brilliant, but I mainly do stick to streaming, and like that's just because as soon as Netflix became a thing, I was there. They went, "You want it?" I was like, "Okay." Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I also adore physical media, and that's dying out. I may have to come to terms with the fact that by the time, if I ever manage to make any of my stuff a success, by the time it is that, I might never get to see my work on a DVD. That might just not be a thing, but I love physical media.
That's a mad. Physical media is dying out. You're right, and it's. I am dying to find. Even though I can't remember the last time I actually used a disc, but I'd buy it just because I really want it, and that is Dogma on Blu-ray.
Oh yeah,
because obviously that's Harvey Weinstein's property.
Oh yes,
that Kevin Smith lost, which meant that it's gone now. It will never be reproduced. So if you can find that on Blu-ray, it's worth some money.
I'll keep an eye out, because I go in a lot of secondhand DVD. I'm trying to think if I can. I mean, only really for your reference, but I've got like just piles of stuff.
And is that your homework? Is that what you do for research?
A lot. A lot,
Cinephile.
admittedly. I do watch a lot of stuff, and especially like when I'm in the office that I now rent, like I've just got box sets of sketch shows that I'll just watch while I write. Sometimes it's really irritating. Sometimes it's really helpful. Other times it is really irritating because if a joke or a sketch is really, really good, I'll just be angry that I didn't write it, which is like very odd. But I remember I was watching. Did you ever see Touch of Cloth?
Not a touch of cloth, no.
No, so that was it was like a spoof crime drama with John Hannah in the lead, and it's like
It was a bit like Touch of Frost. But
yeah, but it's just completely absurd. But it's all dramatic actors. Saran Jones is in it as well. Like it's incredible. But there was one joke in that where there was they're like heading towards this body and they're giving him like the briefing before he goes to investigate, and they say one line where they say he's never been found dead before, so that is out of character. And I was like, that is such a good line that it just angered me that I'm like, I can't use that. I'd never have come up with that, but I'm annoyed now because someone else wrote that. But for the most part, yeah, I kind of research. I'm going through, I'm rewatching a load of Victoria Wood stuff at the moment that I adore a lot of her sort of old sketches and songs.
Is there, what's different about today, the way we, watch things and enjoy things? Because I do feel like the sitcom for sure and sketch shows like your Harry Enfield and your Hale and Pace and all those kind of, they're not as readily as available. They're not making them at the scale they used to. I think since the Big Bang Theory has closed out, I can't think of any large scale sitcom that's actually taking the world by storm.
That's a really solid point. I haven't thought about it in regards to sitcoms, but that is very true. They're kind of just simmering. I mean, like Not Going Out is still going on, but is anyone watching it? I sort of am, but like
it's my family. There's that one was good. My wife enjoyed that one, but that's not really my thing. There's a few things. It was Outnumbered. Was one, but
not properly recently. No, it's like so. The sketch show. There's a couple of like niche stuff on BBC Three that are kind of bouncing about, but for the most part, my theory with the sketch show is that it's sort of still there in the form of TikTok and YouTube shorts and things. Is they're not as high budget, but there is some sort of draw to short form comic content. People are watching little skits on, and they work. People do find them entertaining. The number of times I'll be scrolling through like YouTube Shorts or Instagram. I haven't got around to getting on TikTok. I don't really understand it, but like, these sorts of things.
The same as YouTube Shorts works exactly the same.
Well, that's what I think. Is I tend to think if a TikTok's good, it will find its way onto Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. But even though I haven't figured out the interface or whatever TikTok, that is one of the other plans with the sketch show. Is as well as having this sort of project, be it either just a half-hour short film or maybe it in itself is sort of like a backdoor pilot. Each sketch itself is going to go on YouTube, go on TikTok, and kind of be allowed to have its own life away from the sketch show and see whether it kind of picks itself up there, because people like short-form content. And I think, sketches are that. And I think scrolling through YouTube and seeing a reasonably budgeted, hopefully, sketch show is interesting. And we've got some fantastic directors on as well. And I mentioned earlier we've got each sketch directed by a different person. Some people like me, some sort of first time directors, but also like Piotr Skopiak's directing one of them. He's BAFTA nominated. He made a film with Michael Gambon a couple of years ago, and then he's going to be directing me in a comedy sketch. Like it's fascinating, and I'm hoping that kind of the different voices and styles of these directors kind of allows each sketch to feel like its own self-contained thing.
So how frequently are you writing new material then?
So I haven't for a little bit, but actually just today I'm thinking this afternoon I've got more time than I thought I have today, and I've got a list on my phone of a couple of things I want to do, just random ideas.
Those lists, don't we?
That come up. So I'll whether any of them, like whether I end up writing things, but often if you sit down and go I'm going to write, I'm not going to write anything. But if I'm like out on a train and suddenly go, oh hang on, that'd be funny, that's it. So there was I was out with a friend once, and there was an advertisement for funeral directors, and the thing said 24-hour service. And just instantly, I turned to my friend and I said, "I'm sure an hour or two would be enough." And I was like, "That's the first joke in a sketch. It's not, the most hilarious thing ever, but like that was enough to then expand. And there is a sketch about funeral directors, and that was like where it started. And it's a lot of things like that. I was having a conversation with Alex recently. Don't know whether I'll turn this into anything or not, but we were talking about like, if someone really established in an industry died, how great a networking opportunity their funeral would be. But who would hand out business cards at a funeral and try and network like that? That could be a fun sketch, maybe. Who knows? And it's just little things that.
It'd be a huge undertaking.
That was good. I like that. That was.
You like that? Come on.
I like that.
I saw his brain crash a little bit then and go, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, no, it was like, I was in the wrong like zone, but yeah, I really enjoy, and I think sketch writing as well. Like, I have so much respect for writers who are doing, long form drama where every character has big backstories and like these detailed reasons. You're kind of lucky enough in sketch form that the characters can be kind of two-dimensional and just exist to serve the purpose of the sketch. And by the moment the sketch ends, they do not exist anymore. They have no other backstory. And I find that fun. I can throw someone in for a joke where there isn't, I don't have to defend why they exist or how such a person could be there.
I guess that means you could just be a bit more aggressive in your writing and in your delivery of the joke. It kind of it's got timing right. So people are a bit more forgiving. You're right. Where when it comes to sketches, they don't need to be like, "Oh, where's the Uncle Ben story in Spider-Man's thing?" Like they just know automatically that this is just a joke.
That's it. And it's like there's one sketch I did live recently where like I think one of the biggest laughs genuinely came from revealing a backstory slightly. It was only the slightest thing, and it's a joke that's definitely been done before, but it was a scene with a shopkeeper, and it was a very absurd, stupid scene. Lots of silly things happened, and at the very end the shopkeeper just turned to the audience and said, "I wanted to be a doctor." Like that's, and that in itself is like, you don't expect a backstory, and suddenly when that's revealed, that's funny. And I think it's that. I also, just in case I neglect to mention later on, want to say that all of the stuff with the sketch show, even being in production now, is greatly thanks to a Telford-based company called PNP Events. They organise a lot of stuff, like when the Polar Express comes out around Christmas and stuff across the country, and they are funding the sketches, which is something I never thought would happen. I don't really have to worry about the crowdfunding side for a lot of these sketches or what the budget's going to be, as long as it's not insane. The people at PMP want to support and get it made, and that's a very new, surreal experience, really.
Oh, that's great. I think Telford's doing some great things at the moment with promoting. I mean, like, I've always thought Telford as I did write to the council and be like, look, I know that Telford struggles sometimes and it could do a bit of positivity. Let's do like a Telford biscuit. I can't do it, but I have like the infrastructure in place. But I feel like over the last 18 months, 2 years, I feel like Telford have been doing really good. Some of the events that they've been putting on in the park have been really, really good. Some of the magnificent talent that's been coming out, especially with music from Telford, has been fantastic. I feel like there's a great upward trend for Telford, and this isn't me being disrespectful to the town.
I absolutely agree. It's and the general vibe. I was at a networking event at the House of Lords for a film do thing recently, and like,
of course you were. I was at the house. I was at the House of Lords.
But if you say Telford to some of these MPs and these film people that are there, the way in which their facial expression goes says all you need to know about how the rest of the world views Telford. But there is a lot of good stuff coming out of there, and I think that will change. It's happening to an insane degree with Wrexham, and I think to another level, Telford is got a lot of creators coming out, as you said, especially in music. Like I know so many Telford musicians that are doing incredibly well, and their music is reaching places that I never thought it would, and people are actually starting to know of Telford and not just that place near Birmingham.
Yeah, and that will happen, I think, in time. And it's what the way I look at it is, New York is one of the angriest cities on the planet. They've written songs about it, but I think when it comes to like people with anger and passion, there's also a few examples of where raw talent can come from that, and maybe there's something in
Yeah.
that in Telford, certainly in Wrexham. Both of those towns, by the way, I grew up in. And so like I can sit here and say these things, like, so I mean, like, hopefully there's something good, and it's nice to see a company helping you in your
Yes.
development, because they obviously see the potential in you.
Yeah, well, it was very lovely. It was, very sort of surreal, because I was looking for a business to fund some of the project, and they just like went to levels I didn't expect. And I didn't know there was such a big operation like coming out of Telford. It's a company that reaches nationwide, and they have offices and workshops and stuff in the center of Telford, and you step through, and they've got like big teams building the sets and things for what they're doing, and loads of costume and loads of equipment, and it's like, this is just taking place in Telford. I would have guessed that they'd be operating out of London or Birmingham or something, but yeah, it's in a sort of industrial unit in Telford, and they're a fantastic company, and it's definitely worth checking out the events that they hold.
Amazing. Is there anything that you like? Is there a white whale for you? Is there something that you really would love to tackle one day? I mean, obviously, you just as an adult, you're starting out your career now, but is there something that you would really love to get your hands on as a film?
That's interesting. I mean, one part of me would, if we're reaching full ambitious, one part of me would love to do something in the world of Doctor Who, but another part of me is a Doctor Who fan and knows how cynical all Doctor Who fans are, and I don't know if I could take it. I don't know if I could, write an episode and cope with people talking about it being the worst episode ever written, or the ways in which that fandom talks about that. Maybe I'm happier being part of the fandom rather than being part of the area. But that is on my list as, not that I'd ever expected, but if someone offered it to me, I would probably say yes. But it's, I don't know. I wrote a for the BBC Writers' Room thing, because they open up every year for submissions of pilots. It didn't get anywhere, but I wrote a sort of rom-com set within the film industry, especially indie filmmaking. And I even though I just wrote it for the pilot, I sort of fell in love with my own characters there, and I just loved what I'd written for this thing there. That I kind of, in the back of my mind, is like, I want to expand this. I want to have a probably like 6-part limited series story, and then that's it. But in the back of my mind, it's like, if I could make a sketch show, and then I could expand into being a name that the BBC would trust to give a comedy drama to, that would be it. But also, one of my big callings, I think, is, and I haven't quite figured it out yet, but is as a filmmaker with of Christian faith. I don't like Christian movies, most of them, and I have felt some sort of calling as to try and figure out how to do it properly and do it right.
Is there enough of the Christian community that can enjoy something that's a tongue-in-cheek dig at them without it being an atrocious?
Sometimes. I mean, you mentioned Dogma earlier. I enjoy Dogma. I don't know whether I agree with Dogma, but I can appreciate what it's doing, and it made me think, and I think it's a very intelligent piece of filmmaking that knows what it is. Even if it is criticizing it, it knows what it's criticizing. And I don't even know if it's criticizing. I also love Life of Brian and things like that. I think they open up stuff, and I think, yeah, it's a conversation I've had with a lot of people, and it differs from person to person. For me, I think Christians, we take ourselves too seriously, and I think that we need to be able to see the sort of tongue-in-cheek funny side. I think ridiculing Christ and ridiculing Christians are two very different things. Yeah. And you can ridicule Christians without ridiculing Christ, which is where I would find more issue. I love, do you ever see a show called Rev, a sitcom with Tom Hollander and Olivia Colman?
No, there's a sitcom with Tom Holland in it.
Tom Hollander. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant Spider-Man.
No, it's Tom Hollander and Olivia Colman. And it's a BBC sitcom about a vicar, and it is written by a lot of comedy writers, but they also had a big team of consulting vicars, and so it is like accurate but funny, and is the church taking the mick out of itself? And it is, I mean, it also is appealing to people who have no connection to the church whatsoever. It's genuinely a really funny sitcom.
But Father Ted, which was absolutely outrageous.
And it's, you know, it's stuff like that I think is important. And most Christians I know that have seen Rev enjoy it and appreciate what it is there. So I think there is a place for stuff that kind of is a bit sort of tongue-in-cheek about the faith. But it's,
I guess with, like, you know, you're talking about, you know, the least funny thing to come out of Britain, you've got to kind of sometimes just accept the fact that there's going to be one or a handful of people that's just not going to dig what you're doing. You know what I mean? You kind of got to expect those bad reviews regardless of what it is you're doing, so you might as well just do it.
Absolutely. And that's what's there. And I think for me, that's what is sometimes difficult in criticizing Christian media, is I think a lot of Christian movies get it wrong, but I feel like there's something, especially within the sort of, and there have been some films that I don't want to say named and shamed, but essentially but also, like, these are filmmakers with good intentions, and I find it very odd going onto a platform and being, these are wrong, you know. But also expanding upon it, so there is I was very excited to find out yesterday that there is a Christian film festival in Sheffield this year, where it is not just for Christian films, but it's for Christians within the film industry to talk with each other and work with each other and hold talks about making stuff. And I was like, I did not know that this niche was reached. So I have submitted some stuff there. I have also they accept talks from people, so I have applied to give a talk. Don't know whether they'll take it on, but that for me was one of my big things. Was I had a lot of issues years ago watching Christian movies, and I was complaining about it, and I felt like I heard God say to me, do something about it then. And so that's kind of it. But I think the majority of Christian movies are preachers trying to be filmmakers, and that doesn't work. I think you need to be a filmmaker who has allegories and messages instead.
There's literally lists and reams and lists and lists of these amazing videos where you know, American pastors have tried to do a bit of hip hop, or they've tried to make a film, or you know, there was a scene recently with Jesus on a boat and they're trying to it was like, there's some mad stuff out there. If you could you know, break Christian comedy into the mainstream, I think that'd be great. I feel like, especially if it's something that, you know, you can watch as a non-Christian and not feel like you're being preached to. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's it. And the issue that I find is that a lot of Christian movies that are out there treat themselves as evangelistic tools. They are making it to convert people, but they're getting it wrong on the first step by calling it a Christian movie.
Yeah.
Because Christians are the only people that are going to see it. And that is, you know, to just have messages of love and things like that. That is what is at the heart of Christianity.
This is where
also where a lot of stuff gets it wrong.
Seth MacFarlane with Family Guy gets it totally right, because even though some of the stuff is pretty vulgar and they do poke fun of a lot of people, eventually there seems to be a message at the end where it's like, oh, I love you guys. You know, like there seems to be a lesson learned. And I remember reading about a preacher that used Simpsons episodes as sermons, because there's always a story, a way of telling a story in a way that's teachable.
Well, I edited a video essay for Andy Kind, who actually is the comedian that I did the special for recently, and he, as well as a comedian, is a preacher. He'll sometimes go to churches and stuff, and he'll do a comedy gig on the Saturday night and then a sermon on the Sunday morning. And we did a video on his YouTube channel a while ago that was how the Terminator could be read as a biblical allegory, and it was fascinating. And also, I thought it was great as a title, because you go, no, it can't, and then you listen to it and go, yeah, no, fair point. But it was like, and I find what he does fascinating. You know, he is a comedian and a preacher simultaneously, and sometimes those lines cross and sometimes they don't, and he isn't instantly alienating his audience by just making if you call someone, you know, I remember hearing couple of people talk about this. If your plumber's a Christian, you don't go promoting them. Oh, there's this Christian plumber, But like, if you're a Christian who is a comedian, or a Christian who is a filmmaker or a writer, and I think it's good that, like, if you write something or you make something, people can sort of see it as an expansion of yourself. But similarly, like, if you go and ask people who are atheist or different faiths or whatever, oh, do you want to go and see this Christian comedian? It completely eradicates the fact that you're just going to see comedy.
I guess it depends on how strict you are in your faith. Because I mean, like, I guess, like, if someone was going to come to you and say, right, Harry Potter's taken off, Luke Allen, we need you to write some Harry Potter shorts. In some Christian backgrounds, that would be like not cool at all. I guess you'd snap their hands off, wouldn't it, if they asked you to write Harry Potter shorts? Like, yeah,
no, J.K. Rowling would be the other side of that conversation. That's a different thing. But yeah, essentially, it does differ. And I'm never going to be one to tell tell Christians, oh, you should accept this, or you shouldn't. You should just like suck it up and appreciate this film. There are lots of stuff that I enjoy watching and films that I can appreciate that other people might find it a hindrance to their own beliefs or their ideas. I wouldn't go to even Dogma. I wouldn't go to the church and say everyone needs to watch Dogma. It's a case by case thing. Some people would find it.
Well, neither would you say we need to burn every single copy of Dogma, either, would you?
I think it differs person to person. I rewatched Evan Almighty recently and Bruce Almighty, but I was surprised to find Evan a better film.
I quoted Bruce Almighty yesterday in a podcast.
But like, they are secular films with Christian messages, and they work because they're not calling themselves Christian films. And I genuinely think that is the key stumbling block. But yeah, this wasn't a tangent I expected to go on, but this is that is fine. No,
I'm enjoying this because I've learned to be more accepting of the faith around me. I mean, I'm not a religious guy, but my wife is Catholic, and Timmy's just had his first Holy Communion. And I am kind of coming to be more accepting of the fact that this is happening in my family, and I love my kid and I love my wife regardless. I don't go to church, and they don't I don't think I'm a bad person for not going to church, and I don't think it's a hindrance that they go to church. We are a family. We love each other. We just got two different beliefs, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Having that sort of like respect and the knowledge and awareness, I think, is just key. And I'm similarly like I am trying to become aware that, like, if I want people to listen to my side and have conversations, I need to become more aware of other beliefs and less sort of blinkered on my views of things as well. So I am, I will watch different video essays and things about different faiths and different beliefs, and even points that I don't agree with on a Christian level, certain things that I don't understand, because I think I need to hear both sides if I expect someone to hear mine, and it's interesting. Also, recently started going to a new church, and the pastor's favorite film was About Time, so I'm staying there.
I love how you choose your church by their choice of movies.
It came up a couple of weeks into it. I was chatting with the pastor, a guy called Tim Hughes, who is like he's great. But yeah, I was chatting with him at like a sort of networking. Well, not networking. It was like a welcome meeting thing, and he brought up Richard Curtis, and I can't remember how that came up. And then I mentioned About Time, and he was like,
imagine this quiet church, and he mentions Richard Curtis, and then there's Luke Allen. Oh,
yeah, no, it was great. It was lovely. But yeah, it's a really nice place. I go to a place called Gas Street. It's in Birmingham, so I kind of alternate weeks because I went as a one-off and then felt called there, not just because he likes About Time, but Tim Hughes, the lead pastor. He's I didn't even realize that like I didn't know his surname until I was a couple of sessions in there, that he's the guy who wrote a lot of the songs that every other church I've been to sings. So like he's cool. But yeah, I
think it's nice though. I think it's nice to be able to have these conversations. I think like with social media and the whole Trump of it all, and
Yes.
the J.K. Rowlings of it all, and all these kind of arguments that go on social media, I feel like you're either going to wade into a conversation with an opinion, or some sledgehammer of an opinion, or you're going to avoid the conversation altogether. I feel like if we can learn to just all be sort of like respectful of each other's boundaries and learn that we can just talk about these things. You don't have to like pussyfoot around asking a question about something. It's like we were talking with Verity, my co-host. We were talking about sort of cancer treatment and stuff. Having worked around, being around people that have had treatment and stuff, I've learned how to actually have conversations about those things. Whereas before, I'd be like, I would not speak to them because I want to say the wrong thing. I put my foot in it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I get that. It's kind of which in itself seems like could come across as worse. But similarly, I've had certain people where I've just been like, I'm going to say the wrong thing, so I'm going to either talk to you about something completely different, which probably seems really insensitive. It's like, oh, did you see this new show on TV last night? Let's ignore what's going on here. But like you kind of need to, and social media doesn't help with that. There's a reason that all of my social media is probably just kind of promoting stuff I'm working on or sharing my friends' work. I don't really like involve myself in conversations because, I mean, you're also like, I don't want to be one of these cancel culture because it's a lot deeper than that, and there are certain people need to be held accountable for certain things, and that pushing everything in one box like cancel culture is hard. But similarly, like, I, even on podcasts and stuff, I'm trying to break into an industry where anything that I have said could be taken out of context, could be sound bited and sent to me, with screenshots of tweets from 5 years ago, where I've just come across wrong. And so I am having all of my social media, every time on a podcast, I have to listen to it the minute it comes out, like to check how everything sounds.
Yeah. You've always been kind of like that, though. Kind of like that about you. You're kind of careful, whereas I'm kind of like, well, you know me. I've been doing this for a long time. And
sometimes I'll see discussions on social media, and I'll be like, I want to get involved in that, but also like just by having that conversation on a public forum, my career is on the line. And like, I might not be saying anything bad, but like, it could be misconstrued as such. I could be, you could like someone's tweet, and they could turn out to be a horrible person, and suddenly you're endorsing.
Well, look at the James Gunn movie 43 research posts that were like, what caused him to get fired from Disney. I mean, they were horrible messages, and he did put his hands out and say there were terrible things we were writing, but they were genuine. Like, they were for skits, they were for sketches that he made for movie 43. They were taken completely out of context, but I mean, they were horrific. The content in those tweets were horrific, but they were for a purpose. They were making comedy about things that you're not supposed to laugh at, but people kind of.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, I've seen movie 43. I don't think you're supposed to laugh at the whole film. It's awful, but but yeah, no, I get you. And it's, people should be allowed to change, and people should be allowed to adapt, and that the internet culture hasn't quite caught up with that yet. And there are some people who should be held accountable for stuff. There's all the, once again, I'm going to throw in the word allegedly a few times here, just to reiterate, but within the Doctor Who fandom, what went on with Noel Clarke was thrown in the same box as John Barrowman exposing himself for humour on set. Those are both bad things, but they are very different stakes, but they are thrown in the same box as genuine sexual abuse and something that isn't good, but everyone on set, as well, the majority of people on set, as far as I'm aware, were not uncomfortable with Barrowman.
The whole cancel culture thing, I think you're right. You don't know what, like, this stuff that's, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a footballer, Dele Alli, who's just done an interview with Gary Neville. Dele Alli was one of the most popular midfielders in the country. He suddenly dropped in form, got dropped by his team, got dropped lower. And everybody's like, oh, Dele Alli's crap, all, footballers be.
Yeah.
But he's just dropped this interview, and it's absolutely mind-blowing when you look at his life and the things he's got through, his addiction to drugs, the abuse he suffered when he was a kid, all of these things that's going on with him. And you think, how quick people are just to be like, oh, he's terrible, you know, or he's this or he's that. Like, he's got a lot going on in his actual life,
No,
and it's like it's the same thing.
Yeah, and to kind of slightly link that to the world I know of the Doctor Who fandom, whilst it's not directly in their life, an interview was released shortly after Chris Chibnall left as showrunner of Doctor Who, and general acceptance for most of the fandom, which I have been partaking in the conversations of slightly, is that he wasn't a good writer for Doctor Who. But the latest season, which was under a ton of criticism, he did an interview shortly after he left where he was talking about how they had to structure it because of the pandemic, how they had to write it in a way that if one of the actors caught COVID, they could literally change the entire schedule like that and go, we're going to film these scenes instead. And the fact that anything got made is incredible under those conditions. For it to be a coherent story is impressive under those conditions. It's not good, but it is still, an impressive thing. And we're very quick to judge the quality of something without the context. And there are both sides there. You could turn that back on me at what I've said about some of these Christian movies that have got it wrong. I am judging their quality.
Nobody will.
Context. There is. In the general form of media criticism, there's a line that I don't think we quite know, which is judging something purely on what it is or judging it based on...
Comment threads are the worst, and sometimes I wade in there. I don't know, maybe to punish myself, I don't know, but we all do it. I think it's just out of curiosity more than anything. But tell us, I know we're running short on time, but Ask See Knock, what are your intentions with it? What is it, and how can people help you?
Yeah, so I set this up start of April. It had been in the works for a long time, mostly because I kept not having a name and everything else in place. And I was like, I could not come up with a company name. And then you probably heard me say many times, you don't ask, you don't get. And that's been my whole approach. There's a passage in the Bible which is ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock on the door will be open to you, which is like the Bible version of you don't ask, you don't get. And then I realized ask, seek, knock, ASK, it's ask again, and I really liked that. So that became.
I didn't even realize that.
And so that's kind of what I've done. So it's sort of I wanted to set myself up as a sole trader. I had Bottle O Productions was a thing which I had for ages, and I hated the name. And I was like, the more stuff I do under that name, the harder it is then to break out of that. And also, I'm setting myself up as a sole trader, and I could just do that under my own name, or I could set it as a company. So we'll produce our own sort of original content through our Seat Knock, which is like when the sketch show and Andy Kind's new comedy special, when that gets dropped on some streamers and stuff, it will have the Our Seat Knock logo at the start and the end. That is the actual company. But similarly, it's a website where people can use to hire me for different projects, find examples of what I do as a producer, as a writer, and as a production manager. There's also, if people don't want to hire me as a producer without any knowledge of working with me, because that's a big role to give someone you've never met. That is, there is a crew call out part of the site, which is almost like a free trial of me as a producer, which is if you're an indie filmmaker and you are short of a sound person, or you're short of a lighting person, or a few runners or something, you can fill out the form on our website, and completely free of charge, I will try and find you people, and you can then see my hopefully skills in sorting you people. Obviously I can't guarantee that the people I know and the people I can find will say yes, but it's Facebook groups especially in the film world are toxic and horrible, and I've used them so many times for either for low or no budget projects, and it's like, you can't be not paying these people, and it's like, but I've got 50 quid to make the whole thing on. We're not direct. You can just say no. That is and so it's a little bit like that. But similarly, it's just, as I said, I wait for people to hire me for other projects. So I'm producer on a short film called Got Your Nose at the moment, and so they could contact me. I mean, I knew Stuart already, but it could contact me through the website and get me on there. It's sort of just a place for all of my stuff.
All of your stuff.
Got Your Nose I will briefly promote, because that'll we're doing the last day of filming fairly soon, and then I imagine it'll be out in the coming months. And that's a short film about a guy whose uncle played Got Your Nose with him when he was a kid, and he's grown up to early adulthood, and he's gone to see a therapist because he believes he still has no nose. And it's like it's played as like a straight drama, but with this really stupid premise. And it's one of my favorite scripts I've been sent. The guy who's writing and directing it, a guy called Stuart Hardy. I have been a fan of his YouTube channel since I was like 12, so it was very surreal for him to be like, nice. "Will you come and produce this short film?" But it's very, very, very good. And
what's that? There's a Netflix documentary, and it was a parody, and it was like, "Who drew the in the car?" I can't remember what it was called. It was basically like, and they did it proper deadpan.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So they did like, it was like, who drew the obviously I'll bleep this out, who drew the on the car? And it was like, and they did the whole sit down Netflix. Well, last I saw, Billy was hanging around the car park 2:00, but he's not a guy to do that kind of thing, and it was so brilliant how they did it.
Well, I think that is what's fantastic, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the directors that I've approached, not all of them, but a lot of the directors I've approached for the sketch show are dramatic directors. Like Piotr, he does Waterloo Road and EastEnders and Doctors and like big, like his films like thrillers and stuff. He is not a comedy director, but I don't want him to direct it like there's jokes. I want I want it to be treated as though it's normal dialogue, because I think that's funnier. Not always, but for the most part, I think the comedies that are funnier are those when you play it completely deadpan. And some of the scenes we've shot already for Got Your Nose, like it's only a 10-minute short, but like I'm watching it and genuinely like nearly tearing up and getting emotional about these scenes. And I'm like, but hang on, this is a guy talking about how he thinks he has no nose, but it's played so well that it still like tugs on your emotions. So that I'm very much looking forward to when that comes out. I don't know where it will be or what it will be, but
for the listeners at home, the documentary I was talking about as well is called American Vandal. Definitely check that out on Netflix. It's brilliant because, like you just said about Got Your Nose, you really get stuck into it, and then you realize this is complete satire.
Well, did you ever watch Being John Malkovich?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
because I thought, because that's one of the prime examples for me of like it's the most stupid idea for a film, but they play it like it's a really serious drama. Absolutely. And like it's incredible. And so it's that's there. But comedy is definitely, I probably said when we're doing Reduced to Clear and stuff, but since I did Unstable and things before that, comedy is my home. I'm not leaving comedy anytime soon. That's where I feel the most me.
Well, I think it's great catching up with you every now and again, because your career from 14, 15, having to write to your parents to get permission for you to come on the Biscuit, back in the day, to seeing where you are now, it's been a real pleasure. It really has, and I'm really excited for your future. I feel like you got working on some great things, and you're a good friend, and it's nice to catch up with you. And we will do some stuff with Rocking Horse Media as well, with Henry House. We will catch up with them at some point. I know it seems like we just completely dropped off the face of the planet as far as that's concerned, but if you've been following the Shrewsbury Biscuit on social media, you'll see we have been non-stop, like even just for the last month alone, we've been absolutely killing it. So there's a reason why you did that.
You've got an insane workflow coming out. I am constantly looking on your page and being like, I don't think I can even listen to this much content. So it's great, and you've had some really like cracking interviews coming out. So it's a pleasure to be back on. It's
one final time
yourself.
Well, before we leave, last thing I want you to do is to tell people where they can follow you.
That's all like officially changed with my rebrand, so that's cool. So I mean, there's askseatnock.co.uk, and then Twitter, Instagram, and maybe Facebook. I don't know if I'm doing Facebook.
Are you on Threads as well?
I haven't yet. I thought I'd give it a couple of weeks and see if like people are still talking about it. But if you just search for either Ask Seat Knock 23 or Ask Luke Allen, and that was my handle for everything. Llama Bottle Zero is dead.
Okay.
That rebrand has. I finally bit the bullet and changed my Twitter out. So that's. But yeah, Ask Luke Allen is probably where you will find most stuff, and me not getting involved in Twitter debates. So, yeah. Good
effort on your part there. Well, Luke, it's been great chatting to you. I'll let you go. We've been going for over an hour now, but thank you also as well for because this was a very short notice podcast. So thank you for getting in touch and
no worries.
on the show. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, I'll let you go. Don't go anywhere though. Properly.
Yeah,
I'll kill this. But thank you very much for joining the show. I'll end this with a bit of an outro, guys. So keep listening. But ladies and gentlemen, Luke Allen. Cool. So what do you think of that then? Great episode. I love catching up with old friends on the show. It has got me thinking about who haven't we spoken to in a long while that we could bring back on the biscuit. If you want to come back on the show and you know you've been on before, get in touch. Nothing better than catching up with old friends. Thank you so much to tuning in to, making this your choice of listening today. I really do appreciate it. If this is your first time listening to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast, please give us a follow on our social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Threads, we're on TikTok. There's so much going on. And we would appreciate your follow or your subscribe. I really do appreciate it. A quick mention before we get out of here: Pod Aid. I am very much in the midst of Pod Aid planning. If you're not aware of what Pod Aid is, it is a 24-hour live podcast charity event that we put on every year to raise money for Lincoln Davis. We've done it for the past 2 years. This is going to be our third and possibly final year. I don't know how it's going to work next year. With professional commitments and what have you, but this is definitely going to be a good year. We just found our venue. We got a venue. I'm just looking for guests now. We're looking for sponsors. Putting a team together. But yes, Pod Aid is very, very much alive, and it's going to be back. It's going to be on the 11th of November, which is unfortunately Remembrance Weekend, but it's the only weekend we could get with our producer. So we are going to be there for the whole 24 hours on that weekend. We're going to get some great guests, and if you want to get involved, what's going on, look for Pod Aid on Facebook and on Instagram and also on YouTube. It seems really daft for me to ask for you guys, can you give us our YouTube a subscribe, even though there's nothing going on there. Actually, it helps because once the content starts, you'll get those notifications up when they start, and also it helps bolster our algorithms and stuff. So yeah, Pod Aid is very much coming on the 11th of November. Anyone that wants to get involved, please get in touch with me. My email is shrewsburybiscuitpodcast@gmail.com. Right, thank you, Luke. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.